I am genuinely, like, physically shaking right now. Like, my actual hands are trembling holding my wine glass. My entire emotional stability has been completely shattered, and it is entirely the fault of reality television.
You're going to spill that Pinot Grigio all over the couch if you don't calm down.
I can't. I need to take a deep breath, babe, because the sheer unadulterated mess we witnessed tonight has rewired my brain chemistry permanently. Like, I am shaking because today we are taking the ultimate plunge into the psychology of reality TV meltdowns. We are using the catastrophic episode 12 of Top Chef Carolinas as our blueprint tonight.
It was a disaster class.
It really was. We are breaking down the culinary failures, the deep Appalachian history, and why one chef serving melted chicken liver mousse is a literal masterclass in ego and delusion.
I told you to pace yourself with the wine before we hit record, but did you listen? No. But honestly, I am entirely in the same boat. My jaw has been resting on the literal floor for the past hour. I am currently operating on pure adrenaline, sarcasm, and the absolute disbelief of what just aired on national television. I feel like I just survived a psychological thriller.
Welcome back, babes. We love you, we see you, and babes, we hope we have an amazing day. Because honestly, we need you right now. I know you are probably sitting there in your living room, or maybe you're driving, but I need you to mentally pull up a chair next to us. We need the Snark squad to assemble immediately.
We are officially in crisis mode. The wine is officially poured. It is on deck. My glass is dangerously full. And babes, we are so excited to be here tonight, but consider this your official warning. It's going to be unhinged.
I just feel so deeply emotionally tethered to reality TV chaos. Like, I genuinely feel like these people on the screen are doing this to me personally.
They're targeting you.
They are. Treating our time hanging out on the Snark side like group therapy is literally the only way I survive my weight. I am emotionally thriving right now, fueled entirely by other people's televised drama. It's a sickness, I know it is, but I absolutely love it.
It absolutely is group therapy, but like the kind where the therapist is just enabling all of our worst behavioral instincts and, pouring us another drink. I am exactly 2 sips of wine away from becoming extraordinarily shady.
Oh, I am ready for the shade.
Like unfiltered, fully legal, team sweating shady. So buckle up, we are not holding back tonight.
Yes. Oh my gosh, before we even get to the absolute tragedy in the woods that was tonight's Top Chef mess, we thought it would be so fun to kick things off tonight with a few messy, chaotic, listener-submitted questions.
Because why not start with chaos?
Exactly. We put the box up on our story, and babe, you and the rest of the Snark squad did not disappoint. You are all just as beautifully unwell as we are.
Which is really saying something. Honestly, reading through these submissions, I was deeply concerned for the psychological well-being of the Snark squad, but also so incredibly proud.
I love them so much.
Give me the first one. Let's just jump right into the mess before the wine fully hits my bloodstream.
Okay, the first question. Babe, this one is so intense. It actually made me spiral this morning. If we found out one of us was secretly a fugitive, would we report each other to the FBI? Oh my God. I'm already getting emotional just thinking about this. I am picturing the sirens.
A fugitive? Okay, let's establish some parameters here. Are we talking about white-collar crime, like embezzling from a corrupt hedge fund? Or are we talking about fleeing a bank heist in a stolen Honda Civic? Because the optics matter.
It doesn't matter. Listen to me. I am looking you in the eyes right now. Loyalty is absolutely everything to me.
Okay.
I would literally never turn you in. I would go down with the ship. I am already picturing myself visiting you in a maximum security prison. I would press my hand against the reinforced glass, crying a single perfect tear.
Just one tear. Very cinematic.
Yes. I would wear a really chic but somber trench coat, maybe a dark oversized sunglass. I would put maximum funds on your commissary so you could buy the good instant coffee. I would never, ever betray you.
See, this is the fundamental difference between us. You are thinking entirely about the aesthetic mood board of a prison visit, and I am thinking purely about logistics and self-preservation.
You would turn me in.
First of all, the trench coat is a solid stylistic choice for a visitation room. I respect that. But from a strategic standpoint, it depends entirely on what the federal government is offering me. Am I getting immunity?
I am literally gasping.
Because if the FBI can guarantee me full immunity, a brand new identity in a tax-free state, and maybe a substantial cash reward from a tip line, I am turning you in before you even finish packing your overnight getaway bag.
I'm literally crying. You would sell me out to the feds. We are best friends.
Only if the price is right and the threat of my own incarceration is high. Think about it logically.
Yeah.
We could effectively continue hanging out and podcasting from witness protection.
No, we couldn't.
Yes, we could.
Yeah.
I'd have one of those voice modulators sitting in silhouette like an anonymous whistleblower on a true crime documentary. Welcome back to the Snark Side. I am currently recording from a subterranean bunker in Idaho, and my co-host is calling in from a contraband cell phone in a federal penitentiary.
Stop it.
It would completely rebrand us. Our numbers would skyrocket.
You're so deeply twisted. I would be in an orange jumpsuit, emotionally devastated, eating terrible cafeteria food, and you're pitching a rebrand from a bunker in Idaho.
It's just good business.
Okay, let's move on before any actual license therapy. Question 2. If we had to join a reality show tomorrow, which one would destroy us emotionally first? Oh, babe, I don't even need to think about this. Survivor. Survivor would break me down to my molecular components in 6 hours.
Oh, absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt, you would perish.
The bugs, the lack of any aesthetic appeal whatsoever, not having my 10-step nighttime skincare routine.
You'd be covered in sand.
I would literally be sobbing on the beach, clutching a coconut, begging Jeff Probst to call me an Uber Black. I form deep, profound emotional attachments to my throw pillows. You think I can sleep on a woven mat of bamboo while a stranger named Boston Rob snores next to me? My nervous system would shut down.
You would be unanimously voted off at the very first tribal council, just so the rest of the tribe wouldn't have to listen to you mourn the loss of your hyaluronic acid serum. It would be a mercy killing for the tribe's morale.
It really would be. What about you?
For me, though, it's any dating show, specifically Love is Blind, putting me in a windowless sensory deprivation pod and forcing me to talk about my deep internal feelings without being able to rely on my facial expressions to convey sheer judgment. I would be an absolute menace to society.
Oh my gosh, you would terrorize those poor men.
I would systematically dismantle every single man in those pods until they were crying in the fetal position. I would ask them about their credit score, their relationship with their mother, and their retirement portfolio within the first 4 minutes.
You would ruin them.
And then, when the show dropped, the internet would aggressively cancel me. I would be the villain of the season. It would destroy my life and my reputation.
You would make them cry, and I would be in the pod right next door crying because I fell madly in love with the soothing voice, only to get to the reveal and discover the voice belongs to a man who owns 3 ferrets, wears toe shoes, and doesn't own actual bed sheets.
Just a single fleece blanket from 2012.
Yes, exactly. The psychological warfare of those shows is unmatched. Okay, what is the next messy question? Question 3. What is the pettiest reason we ever stop talking to someone? Oh, babe, you know mine. I still stand by to this day.
I do know yours, and it is a complete masterclass in absolute delusion. Please share it with the Snark Squad. They need to know how unwell you are.
Okay, I was dating this guy a couple of years ago, and things were going beautifully. We were vibing on a soul level. The banter was great. The dinners were fun. But then it was time to go back to his apartment for the first time. We walk in, and he had fluorescent overhead lighting.
A tragic.
And he just flipped the switch. In the evening, he didn't own a single floor lamp. No table lamps, no warm lighting, no dimmers, no ambiance whatsoever. His living room felt like the waiting area of an urgent care clinic or a DMV.
Disgusting.
It completely, utterly shattered my emotional connection to him in a matter of seconds. I felt attacked on a spiritual level.
Yeah.
The harsh shadows, the clinical glare. I left after 20 minutes and never texted him back.
And honestly, a completely valid, rational response to a glaring serial killer trait. The big light is the ultimate enemy of joy and intimacy. If a man cannot understand the basic psychological comfort of a warm 2700 Kelvin bulb in a shaded lamp, he cannot be trusted with your emotional well-being.
Exactly. Thank you.
My pettiest reason, however, is purely behavioral. I completely stopped talking to someone because they clapped at the end of a movie.
Wait, like in a regular movie theater?
Yes. In a standard suburban multiplex. The credits started rolling, the lights came up, and they just started enthusiastically clapping their hands together. When the director, the actors, the key grip, and absolutely nobody involved in the production of the film were physically present in the room, who were you clapping for?
Oh my God.
The teenage projectionist who just pressed play on a digital hard drive. It gave me such severe, full-body secondhand embarrassment that my fight-or-flight response kicked in. I faked a sudden, severe stomachache, bolted out of the theater, left them in the lobby, and ghosted them for the rest of my natural life.
We are so incredibly toxic. We truly belong together. We are meant to be isolated from normal society. Okay, last messy question, question 4. If we could instantly become famous for one thing, what would it be?
I want to uncover a massive international pop culture conspiracy. I want to be the person who finally proves, with a massive corkboard, push pins, and miles of red string, that two publicly feuding pop stars are actually secretly best friends who have been orchestrating a media manipulation campaign for maximum profit.
That is so specific.
I want to expose the PR machinations of the elite. I want a multi-part streaming documentary made solely about the inner workings of my brain.
See, that sounds like so much work. I just want to be famous for existing luxuriously. I want to be the person who gets off a multi-million-dollar yacht in Capri, wearing something incredibly flowing in a neutral linen, and the paparazzi take pictures from a respectable distance.
Wafting around.
Yes, and the caption in the tabloids is just, "She's thriving." I want a luxury lifestyle brand where I sell $80 candles that smell like emotional regulation and boundaried peace.
Emotional regulation for $80. You would make absolute millions. People are desperate for that. Speaking of existing luxuriously and fulfilling our deepest desires, we desperately need to talk about what we just did before hitting record.
Oh my gosh, yes. Babe, if you are listening to this right now, I need you to know that we just finished dinner before sitting down at the mics. And it was a spiritual experience. It was amazing.
Amazing, sure. But it was also a profound, terrifying psychological experiment in human greed and the limits of the digestive system.
We went to Spring Sushi. And yes, to answer your inevitable question, it was all you can eat.
We need to break down the sheer blinding delusion of stepping into an all-you-can-eat sushi restaurant. You will walk through those doors and you lie to yourself. You look your friend in the eye and say, "I'm going to pace myself tonight. I am going to order responsibly. We are just here for a light, elegant meal."
We literally said that in the parking lot.
Exactly. Then you sit down in that booth, they hand you that little glowing iPad to place your orders, and suddenly a switch flips in your brain. You are no longer a rational adult. You are a Wall Street trader in the 1980s. You are just aggressively jabbing buttons. 6 rolls of the dragon, 4 orders of salmon sashimi, 3 bowls of edema, shrimp tempura, bring it all. You completely lose your mind.
It is pure, unadulterated sensory chaos. The music in there is always slightly too loud. The waiters are basically springing across the floor. The plates are clattering. The neon lights are buzzing. And in that environment, I get so deeply, profoundly attached to my order. When those spicy salmon rolls finally hit our table, I'm not exaggerating, I literally felt a tear prick the corner of my eye.
You were guarding them.
They were so beautiful, the exact precision of the little drizzle of spicy mayo on top, the crispy tempura bits providing that perfect textural crunch against the fatty salmon. I was aggressively fighting for my actual life to protect my rolls from your chopsticks.
From a purely survivalist standpoint, you have to protect them because that table becomes a war zone. But the fascinating thing about all-you-can-eat sushi is the psychology behind it. It provides this incredible, utterly false sense of limitless luxury. For a brief, shining hour, you feel like royalty. You sit there thinking, "Bring me more of the ocean's bounty. Fetch me another platter of tuna." You completely detach from the concept of currency because you aren't looking at individual prices. You are just pointing at brightly colored pictures on an iPad like a toddler who somehow got hold of a black card. It triggers this primal hunter-gatherer dopamine hit. But then the wall hits.
Oh, God, the wall. It is so real and so violent. We were so full. We were literally physically incapacitated. We were slumping in the booth. And what did we do? What did we say to each other?
We lied again.
We looked at each other, took a deep, laboring breath, and said, "We can definitely do one more round." The delusion. Why do we do that to ourselves?
Because it is a sickness rooted in the sunk cost fallacy. We absolutely over-ordered. You sit there, you have 3 pieces of a dense, rice-heavy roll left on the plate. You are lightly sweating, your heart rate is elevated from the massive influx of soy sauce sodium, and your brain plays a trick on you. You think, if I don't order the soft-shell crab spider roll right now, I am actively losing money on this transaction.
Which makes no sense.
It is a complete economic fallacy. You have already paid the flat rate. But the perceived value drives you to consume past the point of pain.
But I don't even care because sushi is objectively the greatest food ever created by humanity.
Yeah.
It's so aesthetic. The flavor profiles are perfectly balanced. It's an entire tactile experience. My spicy salmon rolls were everything to my emotional state today. Though I have to ask, what was that completely random side dish you ordered in the middle of our feast?
The seaweed salad, which, for the record, is an absolutely necessary strategic palate cleanser.
It looked like wet grass.
When you are consuming that much heavy, fatty tuna and dense, starchy rice, your palate gets entirely coated. You hit flavor fatigue.
Yeah.
You need the crunch of the kelp. You need the sharp acidic bite of the sesame vinaigrette to cut through the lipids and reset your taste buds. You need strategic eating. You just consume purely on emotion and vibes, whereas I am constructing a scientifically balanced meal progression.
I eat with my heart. I let my soul guide my iPad taps. But honestly, I am so full right now, I feel like I might just pass out mid-sentence during this recording. Which actually brings me to the other thing that is currently skyrocketing my blood pressure tonight. Babe, we have to talk about the impending doom. We are officially in the moving stress era.
Please, stop. Don't even say the word move. Just hearing those syllables makes my left eye twitch involuntarily.
But we have to talk about it. You officially started packing up the apartment for the move that is happening in exactly 2 months, and I just have to ask the universe. Why is moving such a chore? Why is it universally agreed upon as the worst, most soul-crushing human experience on planet Earth?
Because moving forces you to confront the horrifying reality of your own unchecked consumerism. You live your life thinking you are a minimalist, and then you have to pack. You discover random, useless junk tucked away in the deep recesses of your closets that you completely forgot existed.
It's so humbling.
You realize that adulthood essentially just means slowly accumulating too much stuff until you die. I opened a bottom desk drawer today, a drawer I haven't looked in since 2022, and I found 4 old cell phones with cracked screens, a massively tangled ball of charging cords for devices that haven't even been manufactured since 2014, and a single solitary inline rollerblade. Why do I own one rollerblade? What scenario was I keeping that for? Am I going to hop to safety?
But wait, see, that's the beautiful part of packing, the intense wave of nostalgia. I love going through old things. You find an old movie stub from a terrible date or a birthday card from 3 years ago, and you get instantly, deeply emotionally attached to the memory of it.
You just stare at it.
I have to sit on the floor and reminisce for 20 minutes for every single box I pack. But honestly, I am already so focused on the vision for the new apartment. We are going to decorate it so impeccably. It is going to feel so incredibly luxurious. I have already created 3 distinct Pinterest mood boards for the living room alone. I am thinking heavy, emerald green velvet curtains. We need brushed brass accents. We need layered ambient lighting to avoid the big light trauma.
You are sitting there meticulously curating velvet mood boards, and I'm over here getting emotionally overwhelmed by the sheer volume of corrugated cardboard boxes multiplying in my hallway. They are taking over my living space like an invasive species. Every time I turn around, there's another empty box mocking me.
They are everywhere.
I am honestly genuinely ready to just rent an industrial dumpster, park it on the curb, throw at least 60% of the apartment into it, and start a brand new life with nothing but a floor mattress, a laptop, and a coffee maker. It would be so much easier on my psyche.
You absolutely cannot throw away our aesthetic items. I will physically fight you for the velvet throw pillows. But listen, I have to be completely real with you, and with the Snark squad right now, we are absolutely, undoubtedly going to need to hire a moving crew. Because, babes, this is just way too much for us.
I agree completely.
We do not have the upper body strength, the spatial awareness, or the emotional fortitude required to pivot a 3-seater sofa down a narrow flight of stairs. We would end up screaming at each other and ruining our friendship.
Not to mention, let's be completely real about the concept of bribing friends with pizza. That is the single biggest scam perpetuated on people in their 20s.
It's so evil.
Hey, come give up your entire Saturday, break your lumbar spine carrying my solid oak dresser down 3 flights, and in exchange, I will provide you with exactly 2 slices of lukewarm pepperoni pizza and a warm beer. Absolutely not. It is extortion. And besides, who would actually help us move? Our friends are just as physically weak and perpetually tired as we are. They would carry 1 box of books, complain about their knees, and need to lie down.
Exactly. We need professionals. I want a beautifully organized, perfectly color-coded system. I want burly professional movers who wrap my delicate ceramic vases in pristine, untouched layers of bubble wrap. But here's my fear. Are moving companies secretly massive scams?
Yes.
I've seen the horror stories online. They quote you one price, load all your worldly possessions onto a truck, and then hold your furniture hostage in a parking lot until you agree to pay them double the estimate. I am terrified.
Which is exactly why throwing everything into a dumpster and walking away into the woods is the only truly sound, logical solution. But honestly, as I am sitting here thinking about it, the sheer unbridled delusion of us actually believing we could organize, pack, and physically move an entire apartment all by ourselves It perfectly, beautifully mirrors the sheer delusion of Seeger on tonight's mess of an episode of Top Chef.
Oh my God.
Thinking he could actually serve a delicate chicken liver mousse to 200 people in the sweltering, humid, unforgiving North Carolina woods.
The transition. You are a literal genius.
Yes. Babes, if you are listening, pause whatever you're doing, grab your wine glass, top it off right now.
Yeah.
Because we have to talk about the absolute carnage that was Top Chef Carolina's Episode 12, Appalachian Celebration.
We are giving you the ultimate, completely unfiltered breakdown of this mess. And let me tell you, if you thought the concept of moving boxes was stressful, the sheer paralyzing secondhand embarrassment I experienced watching this hour of television has permanently altered my DNA. I am a different person than I was before I hit play.
Let's set the scene for you, babes. We are down to the final 5 chefs. They are waking up in their quarters in Greenville, feeling the pressure. And suddenly, in walks our queen, Kristen Kish, holding massive boxes of donuts from Scouts, which, first of all, looked absolutely incredible. I was salivating just looking at the glaze.
The donuts looked phenomenal, yes, but we absolutely have to pause and talk about the blatant, unapologetic, absolutely high-camp product placement that occurred immediately prior to that scene.
Oh, the credit card. We get a shot of Kristen standing at the bakery register, holding up a bright red piece of plastic and declaring with the cadence of an infomercial host, "I'd like to use my Active Cash credit card from Wells Fargo because I earn unlimited 2% cash rewards on purchases."
I screamed at my television. It was so forced, it felt like a hostage video.
It was pure, unadulterated reality TV camp. You could physically see the light leave her eyes for a microscopic split second as she delivered the contractual copy, but she powered through it like the consummate professional she is.
Go.
Honestly, I don't even hate the in-your-face sponsor plugs anymore. We have moved past annoyance and straight into irony.
Right.
I genuinely look forward to them. I want them to push the envelope and be even more ridiculous. I want Tom Colicchio, right in the middle of judging a poorly cooked scallop, to stop, look dead into the camera, and monologue about the incredibly smooth suspension of his brand new luxury SUV. Give me all the absurdity, capitalism.
Oh, it is just so quintessentially Bravo. But immediately after the donut delivery and the banking plug, Kristen drops a massive twist on the chefs. There is no quick-fire challenge today, which, at the final 5 stage of the competition, is a huge disruption to their mental rhythm.
Massive.
Instead, they are packing up and taking a detour to Asheville, North Carolina on their way back to Charlotte for the Elimination Challenge. And babes, this is where I got genuinely, unexpectedly emotional.
Right, because this wasn't just a fun little culinary road trip for the cameras. The context here is heavy. This episode was filmed roughly a year after the absolute devastation of Hurricane Helene, which completely leveled parts of western North Carolina in the fall of 2024. The infrastructure was decimated.
Seeing the archival footage they spliced in and hearing the locals talk about how their entire community was impacted, I felt this deep in my soul. When something that catastrophic happens, seeing the sheer resilience of a city, seeing how neighbors pull together to rebuild from the mud up, and the fact that the chefs, the restaurant industry workers, were literally on the front lines.
They stepped right up.
They were firing up grills and feeding people who had lost power and clean water for weeks. It's so incredibly beautiful to me. Food is love, food is survival, and seeing a community come together around a hot meal just wrecks me emotionally in the best possible way. I was weeping on my couch.
It really grounded the entire show and gave it a profound sense of purpose. They meet up with Top Chef Houston alum Ashleigh Shanti at her Asheville spot, Good Hot Fish.
Yeah.
And she explains how she was one of the local leaders spearheading these grassroots pop-up kitchens. She was coordinating efforts to feed like 200 people at a time, operating out of historic black churches because the community couldn't even access the downtown areas due to the flooding.
It's just amazing.
It is a testament to the logistical brilliance of chefs in a crisis. They also take a tour through Chai Pani with Meherwan Irani and the Marketplace with William Disson. It wasn't just trauma mining, it was a proper, deeply educational tour of Appalachian foodways and the specific culinary resilience of the region.
Which brings up the most fascinating part of the episode, the Appalachian ingredients themselves. Because Appalachian cuisine has such a deeply specific, unique flavor profile built entirely on survival and preservation, Ashleigh introduces the final 5 to things I had literally never even heard of in my life. Like pawpaws.
Ah, yes, the paw.
It just sounds so cute. Pawpaw. It sounds like a cartoon character. It's this wild fruit. indigenous to the region, and botanically it's fascinating. It has this incredibly soft, custardy texture, and the flavor profile is like a collision between a banana, a mango, and a melon. As soon as they tasted it, Rhoda immediately got emotional because it instantly connected her to the cherimoyas she grew up eating in the Philippines. I absolutely love when food provides those universal, cross-cultural through lines, but then Ashleigh introduced them to the leather breeches.
I'm sorry, I'm pausing the heartfelt moment because I physically cannot take an ingredient seriously when it sounds like a dusty garment worn by an 18th century blacksmith.
A leather
Breeches.
got it. It is a historic preservation technique.
I know what it is. They take whole green beans, string them up on a literal sewing thread, and hang them on a porch to dehydrate in the air for the winter. The dehydration concentrates the sugars and gives them this incredibly intense, almost meaty umami flavor when you rehydrate them in a broth. I understand the culinary science behind it. But calling a bowl of beans leather breeches, I refuse. I am mocking it. I cannot order that at a restaurant with a straight face.
You are so deeply disrespectful to American history. They had to survive the winter. But honestly, the ingredient that actually terrified you the most wasn't the historical beans. It was the sour corn.
Listen, I am standing in total solidarity with Jonathan on this one. Jonathan revealed he was scarred for life by sour corn as a small child. His Appalachian grandmother used to force feed it to him, and the flavor profile is overwhelmingly, aggressively acidic. We are talking about lactic acid fermentation of raw corn until it literally punches you in the jaw with sourness. The entire concept of fermenting sweet corn until it becomes hostile. Terrifying. I stand with Jonathan's childhood trauma. It sounds like a dare, not a side dish.
But this is where the game mechanics kick in. Because Sherry won the Elimination Challenge last week, she gets a massive advantage. She gets first pick of 2 specific Appalachian ingredients from the curated pantry, and whatever she picks, no one else is allowed to use. And babe, she is so incredibly smart. She looks at the table and immediately snags the October beans specifically to honor her Brazilian roots, and then she grabs the jarred chow chow.
And from a strategic game theory perspective, this was a masterful, absolutely cutthroat blocking maneuver.
Oh, totally.
Chow chow, for anyone who doesn't know, is a highly acidic, sweet and sour pickled relish made from cabbage, green tomatoes, onions, and peppers. It is an Appalachian staple. Lawrence was heavily, visibly eyeing that chow chow to cut the fat in his planned dish. By claiming it, Sherry completely kneecaps Lawrence's initial flavor profile. He has to scramble to find another acid component. That is exactly how you play the game when you are down to the final 5. And from there, they are off to Whole Foods. They get 30 minutes and a $300 budget to supplement the proteins provided for the challenge.
Which sets the stage for the prep time and the absolute menu delusions. Babe, the challenge parameters are huge. They have to cook an elevated Appalachian-inspired meal for 200 resilient community members, first responders, and locals at the Union Exchange Campground just outside of Charlotte. They were given 3 hours of prep time in the air-conditioned Top Chef kitchen, and then they only get 90 minutes of on-site prep the next day in the woods.
Let's break down the math of that. 200 people, outdoors, in the summer heat. 90 minutes of final execution time. This requires an incredible, almost military-level volume of food production. And this is exactly where we see which chefs possess actual logistical intelligence and spatial awareness. Take Rhoda, for example. Her initial instinct was to make 200 individual Filipino stuffed cabbages to fuse with the Appalachian ingredients.
But she has this incredible moment of clarity in the kitchen. She looks at the clock, she looks at the pile of raw cabbage, and she realizes she physically cannot roll 200 individual, perfectly uniform cabbages in that 3-hour time frame. And instead of digging her heels in with stubbornness, she pivots.
A smart pivot.
She takes the cabbage leaves and layers them into these massive, beautiful roulade logs that she can braise whole and then simply slice into perfect rounds at service. I stand this emotional intelligence so hard. Knowing your physical limits and managing your stress before you spiral into a panic attack, she is a queen of emotional regulation.
Exactly. It shows maturity. Now, contrast Rhoda's brilliant logistical pivot with Lawrence. Lawrence decides that for 200 people, in a condensed time frame, in a kitchen where he doesn't control the ambient humidity, he is going to bake 200 leather breeches buns entirely from scratch.
I was so stressed for him, like physically tense.
I was literally yelling at the screen. Making yeasted bread for 200 people is a massive, potentially fatal risk on Top Chef. Bread relies on a living organism. If the yeast doesn't activate properly, if the hydration ratio is off, if the proofing time is too short because you were rushing, or if the ovens are calibrated weirdly, you end up with dense hockey pucks. And if the bun fails, he has absolutely no vessel to serve his catfish on. It was a massive gamble.
But babe, Lawrence's bread risk completely pales in comparison to the absolute, unmitigated historical disaster that was Seeger's menu plan. I need to take a massive sip of wine before we even begin to unpack this man's brain.
Pour a heavy one, because we are diving into the abyss of male hubris. Seeger, a professionally trained chef, decides that for an outdoor daytime summer camp event in the sweltering, sticky 90-degree North Carolina woods for a crowd of 200 everyday people, he is going to make chicken liver mousse, a delicate, highly perishable chicken liver pate.
I'm screaming all over again. Who on earth wants to eat wet, spreadable liver outside while sweating in the humidity?
He literally looked right into the confessional camera with a straight face and called the dish foolproof. The sheer arrogance, the blinding delusion. Oh, I'll just blend up some iron-rich organ meat with a bunch of heavy cream and gelatin, let it set overnight, and a perfectly chill walk-in, and then pipe it onto a cracker in the middle of a forest. Foolproof.
So delusional.
Let's break down the food science here. A chicken liver mousse is a delicate emulsion. It relies entirely on the structural integrity of chilled fat butter or schmaltz and gelatin. Do you know what happens to gelatin and butter when exposed to 90-degree ambient heat and 80% humidity? It melts. The emulsion breaks. The fat separates from the liquid and it turns back into a grainy, lukewarm puddle. From a purely culinary and logistical standpoint, this is the worst read of a room in a climate in Top Chef history. You're feeding community members at a campground, and you intend to hand them a warm, grayish-pink scoop of liquefied organ meat.
It genuinely makes me nauseous just visualizing the texture of it. Which leads us perfectly into the actual service in the woods. And babe, the visuals of this event were pure chaos.
Please, paint the sensory picture for the Snark Squad. Put them in the woods.
Okay, picture this. It is so incredibly hot. You can see the heat waves radiating off the grills. The chefs are sweating profusely, wiping their foreheads with towels. Jonathan is standing over a blazing hot, flat-top grill, desperately trying to sear 200 delicate mountain trout and crab cakes to order. Sherry is elbow-deep in batter, hand-quenneling 200 individual bean fritters and dropping them into a vat of boiling, spitting oil. The lines for their stations are massive. The community is hungry, they are mingling, the energy is high. And then the camera operator ruthlessly pans over to Seeger's station.
It was a desolate wasteland. Absolute tumbleweeds rolling past his prep table.
Nobody was in his line. Not a single soul wanted the liver.
Because human beings have an innate biological survival instinct that tells them not to eat warm meat paste in the sun. But honestly, the depressing lack of a line at Seeger's station was completely overshadowed by the unscripted, absolutely feral chaos that happened over at the judges' table. We have to talk about the incident. We have to talk about the snake.
I screamed so loud my downstairs neighbors probably thought I was being attacked. Right in the middle of the woods, as the judges are calmly sitting at their rustic wooden table taking bites of food, this massive, thick, black racer snake just slithers directly across the tabletop, right over the plates.
It was cinematic gold. You cannot script that. Gail Simmons and Kristen Kish literally abandoned all decorum, jumped out of their chairs, and scrambled onto the physical top of the table. They were practically levitating with fear. And then the camera cuts to Tom Colicchio. Tom is sitting there, arms crossed, ice cold, completely unbothered. He didn't even flinch. His heart rate did not elevate. He just watched this 5-foot reptile slither past his water glass like he was deciding how to critique its plating technique.
Tom is fearless. He is a mob boss. But major shout out to the true hero of the episode, Spencer, the swing grip. The camera crew guy who casually walks into frame, wrangles the massive snake with his bare hands like a total cowboy, and just walks it off into the deep woods like it's a completely everyday occurrence. Spencer, if you are listening to this right now, you are an absolute icon, and we love you.
Spencer deserves a full producer credit and a hazard pay bonus for that maneuver. But speaking of things that randomly slithered into frame out of absolutely nowhere, can we please take a brief detour to discuss the most jarring, unexplained reality TV crossover cameo of all time?
Leva Bonaparte and Mikkel from Bravo's Southern Hospitality.
Why? I demand to know why they were there. There was absolutely zero context or introduction provided. They just cut to Leva, dressed to the nines, delicately eating a fritter in the woods of Charlotte. Did she take a wrong turn out of Charleston? Did her GPS malfunction on the way to Republic? Why are high-end nightclub promoters eating liver in a sweaty campground surrounded by trees? It was so jarring, it felt like a glitch in the Bravo Matrix.
It was pure Bravo corporate synergy, babe. They were forcing the crossover. I honestly loved it, even though it made zero logical sense. But let's get back to the actual competition, because the judges miraculously survived the snake attack and managed to make their final decisions. Let's look at the top three.
Well, the top three were fairly obvious. They were clearly the three chefs who didn't attempt to poison the judges with an acidic imbalance or serve them a puddle of liquid meat. Sherry, Lawrence, and Rhoda.
Sherry's dish sounded so incredibly good. She made an October bean acarajé. For those who don't know, acarajé is this amazing Afro-Brazilian street food. Usually it's a fritter made from peeled black-eyed peas that are formed into a ball and deep-fried in rich red palm oil. Sherry used the Appalachian October beans instead and topped it with vatapá, which is this rich, complex stew made from shrimp, coconut milk, and finely ground peanuts. And she finished it with her coveted pico de gallo chow-chow. The judges, especially Ashleigh Shanti, were blown away by how seamlessly she fused her Brazilian culture with the historical Appalachian ingredients. Ashleigh did have one minor critique. She said the peanut sauce got a little lost behind the assertive garlic of the shrimp, but overall it was a massive, flavorful hit.
Then there's Lawrence, who completely defied the odds and proved me wrong. His massive gamble paid off. His catfish sandwich on the scratch-made leather britches bun was a total success. He managed to intellectually connect the Appalachian method of string-drying beans to a specific village Cantonese preservation technique he knew from his own background. And he actually managed to bake 200 buns with a perfectly consistent crumb and hydration ratio in the middle of a forest. Kristen was incredibly impressed with his scalability and his technical execution under pressure.
But the winner. My absolute emotional queen who pivoted gracefully under pressure when the cabbages wouldn't roll, Rhoda.
A flawless, undisputed victory.
She served that gorgeous Filipino egg roll using the stuffed cabbage technique, paired with the bright pawpaw ponzu sauce and apple butter mostarda for sweetness, and a deeply savory buckwheat chili crisp. The judges had literally zero critiques for her. None. They loved the sheer ambition of the prep, the complex layering of flavors, and they were absolutely obsessed with the crunch of that buckwheat chili crisp.
And here, my friend, is the profound Shakespearean irony of the entire episode. The judges are raving about the texture of the buckwheat chili crisp. It is the element that pushes the dish over the edge into winning territory. And who was it that told Rhoda to buy the buckwheat back in the aisles of Whole Foods when she was looking for a crunch component?
Seeger.
Seeger. He literally gave her the exact culinary advice that elevated her dish to the win, which makes his absolute downfall in the bottom two so incredibly darkly delicious to analyze. Let's get into the bottom two and what I can only describe as the greatest, most catastrophic meltdown in Top Chef history.
I am sweating just thinking about this. Okay, the bottom two are Jonathan and Seeger. Jonathan made the seared mountain trout and a crab cake, served with a sour corn relish. The judges basically told him it was just way too aggressively acidic. He used the sour corn, which we know is intensely part, but he didn't balance it with enough fat or sweetness on the plate.
Right. Tom noted that he actually liked the cook on the crab cake itself, but when you build a dish entirely around an ingredient as sharp as sour corn, your palate just gets completely fatigued. It's a basic culinary balance issue. Acid needs fat to round it out. Jonathan failed the balancing act. But Seeger's dish was a fundamental failure of concept, a failure of execution, and a staggering failure of basic common sense.
The chicken liver mousse was a textural nightmare, exactly as you predicted. Because they were outside in the relentless heat, the gelatin emulsion completely melted. Gail Simmons looked at her plate and called it soupy. Kristen Kish looked him dead in the eye at the judges' table and said the texture was completely off-putting and she could physically only stomach 2 bites before pushing it away. It was wet liver, babe. Wet liver.
And to make matters worse, the crackers he baked to serve it on were dry, dense, and chewy. So you have a mouthful of warm, wet, grainy organ soup sitting on top of a stale, tough cracker. It is a sensory nightmare. So unsurprisingly, Tom eliminates Seeger, which, by the way, let's remind the Snark squad of the context here. Seeger was already eliminated earlier this season. He failed. He only came back into the competition because of a technical loophole when Jen dropped out and her partner declined to take the spot. He was living on borrowed time. He never should have been there in the first place.
But Seeger refuses to accept this reality. Tom gives the iconic line, "Seeger, please pack your knives and go." And Seeger orchestrates the most unhinged, hostile, deeply embarrassing exit I have ever witnessed on reality television. He throws a full-blown, foot-stomping adult tantrum.
He completely crashes out. His ego completely fractures. He looks at the judges, gets totally defensive, crosses his arms, and stubbornly argues that his dish definitively met the challenge requirement of highlighting Appalachian ingredients because he used sorghum and greasy beans. He tells the judges to their faces that they should have tasted the mousse directly from his cooler before it melted, completely ignoring the fact that a chef is responsible for the food as it is served to the diner. And then, in a moment of pure, blinding delusion, he demands the rulebook.
I was physically hiding behind my hands on the couch. I was peeking through my fingers. I could not handle the secondhand cringe. A fully grown man, a professional chef, standing in the woods demanding the physical copy of the official Top Chef legal rulebook from a producer off camera.
And the most incredible part, a PA actually walks into frame and hands him a massive printed binder. He stands there, on camera, aggressively flipping through the pages, reading the legal rules aloud, trying to pull a gotcha on Tom Colicchio. He's literally citing subsection whatever, arguing that because he technically utilized the required ingredients, he cannot legally be eliminated. It was a textbook narcissistic injury. His brain could not process the rejection, so he sought a bureaucratic loophole to protect his fragile ego.
Did he actually think Tom Colicchio was going to be like, oh my gosh, you know what, Seeger? You're so right. The binder says you stay. Jonathan, give us your knives. It's so embarrassing. The complete lack of emotional regulation is staggering.
And Kristen, icy and calm as ever, completely unbothered by his theatrics, just shuts him down with one sentence. She looks at him and says, "The mousse completely fell apart. Would you call that successful?" Because, babe, the rulebook explicitly states, as everyone knows, that the judges have full, unmitigated discretion to eliminate anyone for any reason regarding the quality of the food.
Yeah.
You cannot out-lawyer the people who just had to eat your melted liver.
Even Jonathan tried to save him from himself. Jonathan, who is also in the bottom two, leans over and gently, compassionately says, don't end this way, man. He is trying to save Seeger's professional reputation. And Seeger just bites his head off, turns around, basically insults Jonathan's crab cake dish right to his face.
Dissecting the psychology of a chef, pulling out a printed binder in the woods to argue with Tom Colicchio, it shows a complete, fundamental inability to accept personal failure. His ego could not process that his smug, foolproof plan was actually foolish. He couldn't say, I miscalculated the heat. He had to blame the parameters of the game. It was the most deeply satisfying, cringe-inducing reality television I have seen in years. Good riddance to him and his wet meat.
I am exhausted. My heart rate is currently sitting at 120 beats per minute. That was unequivocally the wildest Top Chef elimination ever broadcast.
Truly. We need to decompress before we both have an aneurysm. Let's ease out of this heavy Top Chef chaos with some rapid-fire debates. 4 mini topics to lower our blood pressure and cleanse the palate.
Yes, please, let's do it. Topic 1, who would survive Top Chef? Okay, out of the two of us, or any reality stars we love, who would emotionally collapse first if we were forced to do a 200-person catering challenge in the sweltering woods?
Oh, this isn't even a debate. You would collapse first.
Yeah.
Within 20 minutes.
I know, I freely, openly admit it. I wouldn't last a single hour.
The absolute second a mosquito landed on your stainless steel prep station, you would throw your $200 chef's knife into the brush, declare the environment toxic to your aura, and demand a production assistant bring you an iced matcha. You would not even survive the onion chopping phase of prep.
I would be fully crying in the walk-in cooler, reapplying my lip gloss in the reflection of a stainless steel door, and telling the camera crew that the rustic, sweaty aesthetic just fundamentally doesn't align with my personal brand. I would self-evict. You, on the other hand, would absolutely survive the physical cooking portion. You are organized, but you would get eliminated at judges' table because you would argue with Tom Colicchio. You wouldn't pull out a binder like Seeger, but you would coldly, methodically explain to Tom exactly why his palate is historically wrong.
I absolutely would. I would look Tom in the eye and tell him he simply lacks the intellectual capacity to understand my culinary vision. I would be eliminated with my dignity intact, but I would absolutely be eliminated for insubordination. Okay, topic 2. Most overrated food trend. We just watched Seeger attempt and fail to serve a fussy liver mousse outdoors.
Yeah.
What current food trend do you secretly, or perhaps not so secretly, deeply hate?
Oh, anything that is designed purely for the Instagram aesthetic but tastes fundamentally terrible. Like those massive, towering, chaotic milkshakes at novelty restaurants. You know the ones. They have an entire slice of funfetti cake, a glazed donut, 3 lollipops, and a lit sparkler literally shoved into the top of a pint glass. The cake is always dry because it's been sitting out. The milkshake is violently spilling over the sides. My hands get instantly sticky just touching the glass. It causes me deep emotional distress and sensory overload. I hate it. Give me a normal milkshake in a clean glass.
My hatred is reserved for anything needlessly, aggressively complex that requires a tutorial from the waiter to consume. Stop serving me food on a literal moss-covered rock you found in the alley. Stop handing me a plastic medical eyedropper full of truffle sauce that I am expected to manually inject into a ravioli. And please, for the love of everything sacred, stop serving things dangling from paper clips or tiny wooden clotheslines. It's an absolute scam to distract from mediocre flavor. Put the aggressively priced food on a flat ceramic plate so I can eat it with a standard metal fork. It's a restaurant, not a middle school science fair.
You're so deeply angry about the concept of plates right now. Okay, topic 3, moving horror stories. Since we are deeply entrenched in our moving stress era, what is your ultimate worst-case scenario disaster story from past moves?
In my early 20s, I was trying to save money, so I hired a discount moving company off Craigslist. Massive, glaring red flag. They showed up 3 hours late in an unmarked, rusted white van. 2 guys who looked like they hadn't slept in a week, loaded all my furniture into the back, shut the doors, and then mysteriously got lost for 6 entire hours between my old apartment and my new one, which were exactly 3 miles apart. I was sitting on the floor of an empty apartment, fully convinced my mattress and television were currently being fenced on the black market. When they finally arrived at 11 p.m., a leg was completely snapped off my coffee table, and the driver had the absolute audacity to ask me for a tip for their hard work.
No, I would have literally called the police. That is a hostage situation. My worst moving memory was when I naively thought I could pack a heavy box of kitchen stuff entirely by myself without using any bubble wrap. I just put loose, fragile wine glasses in a thin cardboard box with a single thin hand towel draped over them for protection. I confidently picked the box up, took 2 steps, the bottom gave out entirely, and the sound of 20 pieces of glassware simultaneously shattering onto hardwood still haunts my nightmares to this day. It was a preventable tragedy.
This is exactly why I reiterate my plan. We rent a dumpster, we throw everything we own away, and we buy new plates. Okay, final mini topic 4, dinner party dream guests. If you can invite any Bravo reality TV cast members to a dinner party at your impeccably decorated new apartment who makes the final cut.
Okay, I need people who understand the aesthetic, who will bring the premium drama, but who have enough class not to spill red wine on my velvet furniture. Lisa Vanderpump, obviously. She brings the swans, she brings the high-end rosé, she fundamentally understands the importance of ambient lighting. And honestly, I think I need to invite Rhoda from tonight's Top Chef because I need her to cater. I need her to make me that Filipino egg roll and the buckwheat chili crisp in my own kitchen.
Those are incredibly sound, strategic choices. I'm inviting Captain Lee from Below Deck, because he will just sit silently in the corner in a nice crisp shirt, judge everyone else's behavior, and occasionally drop a completely incomprehensible nautical threat when someone gets out of line. And I'm inviting Tom Colicchio, just to see if I can aggressively debate him into cracking a smile. But let the official records show we are absolutely, under no circumstances, serving Seeger's soupy liver at this dinner party.
Never. We are serving spring sushi, and we are ordering it aggressively on a sticky iPad.
Honestly, that sounds like an elite, flawless dinner party.
Wow. Babes, what an episode. I feel like we just went through a grueling session of group therapy, fought a massive snake in the woods, and witnessed a grown man's fragile ego implode all in one single night.
It was an absolute journey. The psychological toll was heavy, but we survived it together.
We want to express our deepest, most profound appreciation to you, babes, for hanging out with us through tonight's chaos. We could not do this without you sitting there listening to us spiral.
We truly couldn't.
Yeah.
Now is your turn to do some of the heavy lifting. I need you to think about these questions and let us know your answers. First, what is your ultimate go-to all-you-can-eat sushi order? Do you have a strategic method to avoid the wall, or are you just a chaotic iPad tapper like my co-host?
Second, would you actually help your friends pack and move their heavy furniture, or do you magically develop plans that weekend? Be honest with us. Third, which of the messy listener questions from the top of the show was your absolute favorite? And finally, what is the one food you could eat endlessly, forever, until the end of time? Let us know.
And before we officially sign off, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over while you pack your imaginary moving boxes and avoid the big light. Think deeply about Seeger tonight. Think about that man holding that binder in the woods. What does it actually say about us as reality TV fans that we constantly claim we watch Top Chef for the incredible culinary talent and the beautiful ingredients? But our absolute favorite, most rewatchable, highly anticipated moments are always when a grown adult completely loses their mind, fractures their ego, and reads a legal rule book aloud to a celebrity chef.
Oh my gosh, that is so real.
Are we really tuning in for the food?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we all just subconsciously recognizing that human sanity is incredibly fragile? that we are all just one bad day, one stressful deadline, and one melted chicken liver mousse away from a total unhinged public breakdown.
I literally have chills. That is so deep and so terrifyingly true. We're all just one bad moose away from needing a binder to defend our life choices. Babes, please keep hanging out with us. Share this mess with your messiest bestie who loves the drama as much as we do. Remind them to like, comment, and subscribe.
We always need to grow the Snark Squad. Bring your friends into the chaos.
Stay fed, stay messy, and we will see you on the snark side.